L-A-O WWE. L-O. Consider this a brand extension intervention. Like a yoga instructor with a bad Achilles tendon, it's time to end the splits. Now, this month marks the 20-year anniversary since WWE first divided its roster up between Raw and SmackDown. And we've seen some creative draft excellence since then. You know, some ideologies that were played out very differently on two different shows. And we saw some superstars come to the fore through it as well. We've also seen some draft ignorance, you know, Vince McMahon handing out wild cards like they're free drinks vouchers for Cozy Joe's. But we find ourselves at a point where it is time that once again, as the Spice Girls said, two should become one. The main argument for the roster change really is a creative one, because Raw and SmackDown don't feel that dissimilar anymore. You know, you harken back to those days where we had the SmackDown 6 with the younger guys and Raw's Reign of Terror with Triple H. Okay, let's not harken back on that one too much. But I remember watching it at that point and seeing like SmackDown as like the wrestling show where you had the younger talent that would just have these bangers, and then you had Raw, which was kind of like the sports entertainment product. So if you didn't like, you know, the modern day style of wrestling, which would see Rey Mysterio and Edge and such tearing it up in tag team matches and singles matches, that's fine. You could put Raw on a Monday night and watch Kevin Nash powerbomb Triple H through a table en route to a very slow Hell in a Cell match. But we don't get that anymore. The difference now is that there is no difference. Like, Raw and SmackDown are just the same show with slightly different characters and a different color scheme. So, you know, you might as well just accept the fact that the brand split is no longer a thing and the brands don't feel that different, and just mix them back together, give more focused storytelling across both shows. That surely should be the way to go. The original argument for the brand split in the first place was roster size. There were so many when it first started that nobody really could get in on television, but we have seen some massive changes since then. You know, we're not showcasing a substantial superstar stockpile anymore, no, because WWE have released hundreds, literally hundreds of wrestlers over the past couple of years. And whilst the roster is still a decent size, I genuinely think it's at a point now where with 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, and yeah, I'm going to count it, 1 hour of main event, you can showcase the talent that you've got across all three and not have to worry about people not getting the opportunity. Not only we get that, but you don't overexpose some of the talent. For example, Seth Rollins, he talked about this in an interview, actually, did Seth, and he said that he feels that Raw is obnoxiously long and it leaves the talent, as we said just then, overexposed, because you're filling 3 hours, as opposed to SmackDown and its seemingly measly 180 weekly minutes. Now, with access to talent across both shows, you could very well mix that up without having to push certain stars too hard or too fast. You wouldn't need to have Seth Rollins having extended, prolonged matches every week. It was one of the things he said in his interview. You know, he compared himself to Roman Reigns and how Roman Reigns hardly ever wrestles on television, and it's a special thing because, you know what, 2 hours is just right for wrestling shows, whereas Raw, 3 hours is quite bloated. And there's no way, by the way, we're going to get to a point, this is a side point, there's no way we are going to reach a point where we have a 2 hour Raw again. No, if anything, we're going to get a 3 hour SmackDown. So utilizing all the roster at the same time allows people to not get overexposed and everybody will get a chance. But I know, I hear you say, what about live events? WWE like to have multiple touring brands of Raw and SmackDown. And if you take away the brand split, you can't do that. Not the case at all. Because, you know, by doing the Cultaholic Classic Raw review, every Monday on your Cultaholic podcast feed. We go deep into some of the history and some of the behind the scenes on WWF in the 90s, and they had multiple touring brands then, and they weren't branded as like the WWF Superstars roster or the WWF Wrestling Challenge roster or anything like that. They were multiple WWF groups and troops that went and did different shows, sometimes on the same night. So by removing the Raw and SmackDown from the marquee, I think it takes away some confusion, and it emphasizes what WWE always wants to emphasize anyway, which is WWE being the draw, being the name above the arena. There is already an inherent awareness when it comes to live events that you need more star power. I say that because we've seen more Raw and SmackDown stars going to and from both shows to do dark match main events. This is because those live shows aren't drawing the old spondulics, as my dad would say, that they used to draw. So therefore they're advertising Roman Reigns locally to be in a live main event on Raw, and Seth Rollins and such on live main events for SmackDown. So you're having to get these people across the brands in the building anyway. Why not advertise it? Why not just get them on the show and make them part of the lineup? If you're gonna do it anyway, put them on telly. They're in the building, for goodness sake. The other thing that comes from putting all these canvas characters into one McMahon melting pot is that we can smelt some gold. And yes, I'm gonna talk about the championship situation in WWE. There are too many belts, and this is an opportunity for us to take some of those away. Now, we've seen Roman Reigns looking to unify the WWE and Universal Championships. He kind of has. There's one on each boulder shoulder right now. We could see one physical belt at some point. The Usos have made their claim to do the same with the tag team titles, which is all very good. I think that the Women's Championship should be next in line to do that. I think that we desperately need just one women's champion across all the brands that can travel around them. And you know what? While we're at it, let's have one mid-card milestone, okay? Let's have the US title and the Intercontinental title merged. Or better yet, let's just put the US Championship in the front garden and hope that somebody steals it. Because I'm an intercontinental guy. What can I say? I live intercontinentally. And think about it, right? I know what you may be surmising from this is, well, surely less belts mean less belt holders. And that's true. So you are going to have less people with the opportunity to claim championship status. But Bianca Belair, for example, as the Raw Women's Champion is great, well deserved. She is a phenom, and here's the great things ahead for her. And that's great as the Raw Women's Champion. But imagine how even higher that stock would be for someone like Bianca Belair if she was the WWE Women's Champion, lording it across two brands as they merge. Bianca Belair on top of a mountain, which has people like Big Time Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, Naomi, Sasha Banks, Bayley, Tamina, all climbing up it. Many other names I'm sure I've missed. Like, imagine how much more prestige that would have if Bianca Belair was number one in a roster that heavy. One men's championship, one main men's championship, one main women's championship, one main men's tag, one main women's tag, and a mid-card title. That's plenty. That's plenty. You'd have beefy divisions for each rather than half-hearted, apathetically spread divisions for the others, right? Now, we need to talk about maybe the issue of titles being left off of WrestleMania. And that's another reason why I think bringing these belts together would actually help get them back on the show. Think about it. Because there's so many belts that so many get left off. And I feel like if you have just like the Intercontinental title, for example, you're going to be at a point where you can build some big names around the Intercontinental title. And it's more likely to get onto the television and onto the pay-per-views that way, surely. The boring, dirty business of television deals and stuff. Okay, we'll touch on this as well because we know that Fox really loves Roman Reigns. I'm surprised he hasn't turned up in what's it called, Real Dirty Dancing yet, or he hasn't appeared on Family Guy or something like that. They love Roman Reigns, do Fox. And sure, I think they would be a little upset if they were no longer the sole parents of the big dog. They'd have to meet at a service station just outside Crewe to hand him over to the USA Network on a Sunday. But with that comes the opportunity to get stars that you wouldn't normally get to feature on Fox. The world is talking about Cody Rhodes at the moment. And Cody Rhodes is on the USA Network. And surely Fox are thinking, hang on, we want him over here, we like him. If they're on both shows, it's great. USA Network get the odd appearance by Roman Reigns. Imagine if he was on that show more often. USA Network would be delighted by that. Plus, by having a USA Network show on a Monday, setting up matches and promoting more specifically for people who are then going to appear on the Fox show on the Friday, it is another great way to use, and here's some terminology here, brand synergy to create cross-cable collaboration. See the church, here's the steeple, there's the people. Now, this leaves one other reason why you should leave the brand split now behind, right? Because the only other reason that we have the brand split is for WWE to have these weird inter-promotional rivalries in the promotion. The whole thing back in 2001 was that WWF, as it was then, wanted to set up WCW as a separate brand, with the plan being 12 months down the line to run WWF versus WCW, but run by the WWF. Obviously, that didn't pan out. We got the invasion instead, for better or for worse. So they tried again by splitting off Raw and SmackDown, by making them separate things. And that idea started off in earnest. We had a little bit of bickering back and forth. We had pay-per-views that were solely for one show or the other. And now we're at a point where really the idea of an inter-brand war is completely lost outside of the autumn or the fall, if you're American. You know, what was potentially going to be a company-wide plan kind of became something that anchored Survivor Series. No longer is it a case of, you know, which brand is the better. Because they make the weird decision to hold a WWE draft just a few weeks before the Battle of the Brands, it doesn't become a case of which show is better. It's just a half-hearted, half-witted fight about whose t-shirt is the best. It actually ruins Survivor Series. It's something that's just completely forgotten about days after as well. So if your other reason for keeping the brands split is for Survivor Series, you're going to need some better reasons. Nobody genuinely believes that the red tops and the blue tops are at war anyway, because they've mixed and matched and swapped so many times. We genuinely don't know who's who anymore anyway. And it comes back to my first point. Both Raw and SmackDown feel so creatively similar, you might as well just forget the whole idea of having rosters divided. All the more reason, I say, on the 20th anniversary, just gone, of the drawing of the line, it's time we erase it. It's time that it wipes itself away. Because I believe now is the time that we officially end the WWE brand split. Now, you might disagree. Tell me down there. I'm sure you will. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.